right, how you doing today, guys? Welcome back to another day of 7th grade math. This is Mr. Gomez, your favorite teacher in the whole world. And today we're going to be talking about linear relationships and graphs and tables. And this is going to be something very similar to when we talked about proportional relationships, except on proportional, we needed to have, whenever we graph it, we needed to have the line going through the axis or through the origin. In this case, we no longer need that. So, before we start, please consider subscribing if you want to support the channel, link down in the description. And let's go ahead and get rolling. So, we have over here coordinate plane, and we kind of briefly talked about this last week. This is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, and this is quadrant 4. And it's going to go like this, counterclockwise, okay? So, whenever you see something like that, this is called a coordinate plane. And we know that we have the origin right here, which is the point 0, 0, origin 0, 0, and remember this is x, y, okay, just to start with. Now, the first thing that we gotta do is read the question. It says a taxi charges a flare fee of $5, then $2 per mile. We're gonna create a table. Write the equation in the form of y equals mx plus b, and we're gonna plot a graph. So the first thing that we gotta do is write the equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. So let's go ahead and think about this. This writing equations is something that we learned at the beginning of the year, and it's very similar. It's the same basically. We gotta look at the word problem, recognize the factors, and see what we have. So we know that there's going to be a fee of $5, and then we're going to have to pay $2 per mile. Okay? Remember, when we talk about variables, the per, the each, the every, that's going to go with the variable. So we're going to write an equation in the form of y equals mx plus b. We're going to have y equals mx. Instead of the m, that's where we're going to put in the letter, the variable. So that's going to be right there, $2 per mile. So it's going to be $2 per mile, and then plus the fee, $5. Okay, so we got the equation. We've done this many times before, and this is something that's going to help us write a table and plot the graph. Now, in this equation, the form y equals mx plus b, we have two different letters that we're gonna work on, okay? The first thing that we gotta know is b, right here. This right here is going to be called the y-intercept, okay? Y-intercept. And then we also need to know m. M is going to be the slope, which is gonna be the rise over run, which is the y over x, okay? Those are the two things that we need to know. Now, looking at this equation, we already know the b, the y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. And remember, we have axis right here. This is the y-axis, and this is the x-axis. So whenever we see a graph and the line crosses the y-axis, that's going to be your y-intercept. Or whenever you're given the table, whenever you plot it, you're going to put in that number at the y-axis, and that's going to be your first dot that you're going to plot. So let's think. Before we do anything, let's go ahead and think. If, with these numbers that they've given us right here in the word problem, if we're going to get a ride and we're going to have to drive 3 miles, how much are you going to pay the taxi or the cab driver? How much are you going to have to pay the cab driver? If we drive 3 miles, $2 per mile, and the fee, how much are you going to pay the taxi driver? Well, easy, $2 per mile, 3 miles, that's going to be $6. And you also have to pay the fee, which is $5. 5 plus 6 is 11. That's how much you're going to pay at the end. Remember, the fee you only pay it one time, so forth, so on. So then let's look at the table. Before we plot it, let's look at the table. So with that information, if I'm gonna rewrite this right here, let's think about this for a second. Y equals 2, and instead of the x, I'm gonna put in a parenthesis, and that's where I'm gonna put in whatever number of miles I want. Okay? Right here, this is the number of miles. So the x-axis is going to be the number of miles, and the y-axis is the total money that you have to pay at the end. Okay? So instead of the x, I'm gonna put in whatever number you want. Okay? If you put in 0 miles, but you get in the cab, how much do you have to pay? Is it 2 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5. So if you drive 0 miles, you gotta pay $5 because you got in the cab. Now let's do it again. Let's pick a number. If you drive 1 mile, instead of the x, you're gonna put in the value, the number of miles that you want, and then plus 5. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus 5 equals 7. So if you drive 1 mile, you're gonna pay $7. And then you can do this as many times as you want with different numbers, and then come up with the table. So now let's think about the number, for example, 2. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 5 equals 9. So 2 miles, you're gonna pay $9. And you can do this with the number 30 if you want. 2 times 30 plus 5, whatever number you want. It doesn't really matter because it's gonna give you the exact amount that you gotta pay the taxi driver. 2 times 30 is 60, plus the $5 of the fare is $65. That easy. Now, if you drive 3 miles, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 5 is 11. If you drive 4 miles, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 5 is, for 4 miles, you're gonna pay $13, so forth, so on. And you can come up, like I said, with any number of miles, you can come up with the total. If you drive 100 miles, 2 times 100 is 200, plus the $5 fee is $205. It doesn't matter what number you pick, you can always put it in there. Now, with that being said, let's look at the change, okay? Let's look at the change. If we look at this one right here, the change between those two is how much? From 5 to 7 is changing by how many? By 2, correct? From 7 to 9 is changing by 2, just like we did before. All of this is changing by 2. Don't worry about this one right now because that's changing by way too much. Now look at the top. This is changing by 1. All of this is changing by 1. So this is gonna be your rise, and this is gonna be your run, okay? So just like when we did k equals y divided by x, which is rise over run, so it's gonna be 2 over 1. The 2 is gonna be the right here. The k is now turned into an m, because now we're not talking about constant of proportionality, we're talking about slope. So basically this and this are the same thing. The variable is always going to be the same. The variable is going to be the variable is always going to change. It can, I mean, the letter of the variable can be whatever letter you want. So now, with this table that we have created now, we can create the order pairs, okay? The order pairs of the points that are gonna go in the coordinate plane, okay? So all we gotta do, remember, when we talk about order pairs, x comma y, if I look at the first one, the first order pair is gonna be 0 comma 5. Remember, this is x, this is y. The second one is gonna be 1 comma 7. The third one is gonna be 2 comma 9. And the next one is going to be 3 comma 11. And the last one is going to be 4 comma 13. Why do we need this? We need these order pairs in order to plot our graph, okay? Now that we know this, we're going to do something real quick, okay? First of all, my graph is blank, so I'm gonna label it, okay? So in this case, I'm gonna label this one by one. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice, I'm skipping a square. So every time you look at a graph, look at the ratio on the bottom. That's gonna be very important whenever you're trying to find the slope on the graph itself. Now for up, this is my x-axis, 1 through 4. My y-axis, I'm gonna start at 5. Now I'm gonna do 7. I'm gonna do 9. I'm gonna do 11. I'm gonna do 13. Now notice, between these two, I changed by 2. But look at this right here. This is 5. So what I'm gonna do, and what you're gonna see a lot, is gonna be a graph with something like this if it's not gonna be proportional at the beginning, okay? That just means that between there is 0 to 5, so it's not proportional. So just pay attention to those little details, okay? Now to plot this graph, I'm gonna look at my coordinate pairs and my order pairs, which are down here, and I'm gonna start plotting my dots, and I'm gonna do them in red. So for this one, 0, 5, I'm gonna go to 0, and then I'm gonna go up to 5, right there, and then put in a dot. My second one, I'm gonna go to 1, and I'm gonna go up until I reach 7, and then from 7 to 1, I'm gonna put a dot right there. The next one is 2, 9. So the 2 is the x. I'm gonna go up until I reach 9. 9 over, and that's when where it intersects, that's where I'm gonna put in my dot. Next one is gonna be 3 and 11. I'm gonna go from 3 all the way up to 11. 11 all the way down to 3. Put in a dot. 4 up all the way to 13. 13 all the way to 4, and right there. Now, if I connect my dots, I get a straight line. Now, you don't need this right here. That was just for me to write the graph and show you the process. Now, if I look at this line, it is a straight line. However, just like before, does it go through the origin? In this case, it doesn't go through an origin, so it's not a proportional relationship. It is a linear relationship, but it's not proportional because it doesn't go through the origin. Now, the last thing I gotta show you is to write this equation by just looking at the graph, okay? Remember, the equation is y equals mx plus b. This is the y-intercept and the slope, okay? So the first thing you're gonna look for is where the line crosses the y-axis, which is gonna be this point right here. So instead of b, I'm gonna do plus 5 because it's positive 5. If it was negative, because it can cross right there, then it would have been minus 5, whatever the value is. Now, instead of m, let's look at my change. From 5 to 7, I'm gonna go up 2, and from 0 to 1, I'm gonna go up 1. So my change is gonna be 2, rise and run. My raise is gonna be rise over run, which is 2 over 1, which we can just write as 2, right? So y equals 2x plus 5, which is the same equation that I got at the beginning, right? Now, real quick, if you have a graph, that's just the quadrant 1, going up is meant to have a positive slope, okay? If the graph is going up, it is a positive graph. Now, if the graph is going down like this, then it's meant to have a negative slope. That means your m is going to be negative. So that's something you gotta pay attention to. If you have an equation y equals negative 2x plus 5, the graph has to go down. If you have an equation y equals 2x plus 5, then is positive, then it has to go up. Gotta pay attention for those little details. Now, if there's no more questions, that is it for today. Don't forget to comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.